Okay, let's unpack this. We're talking about Napoleon Bonaparte's just astonishing comeback.
Right. This whole period they called 100 days.
And it all leads to this single brutal battle that ends his entire career, Waterloo.
And you really have to get the stakes here. I mean, after he was defeated in 1814, everyone in Europe thought, okay, that's it. The Napoleon chapter is closed.
But it wasn't.
Not even close.
Yeah.
His return in 1815 was his last desperate shot at reclaiming power and, completely changing the map of Europe all over again. He knew this was it.
So to get this, we have to go back to where they put him first, the little island of Elba.
In the Mediterranean, yeah. It was basically a nice prison.
But clearly not a very good one.
He was there for about 10 months just watching.
Watching what?
Watching the new king of France, Louis XVIII, make a total mess of things. He was really unpopular, especially with the army. Napoleon saw that instability and decided to gamble.
So in February 1815, he just escapes. With what, 1,000 guys?
About 1,000 loyal soldiers, yeah. He lands in the south of France and starts marching north.
And here's the crazy part. The French army is sent to arrest him.
And instead, they just join him.
They see him and they switch sides.
Exactly. He marches all the way to Paris and takes the city without a single shot being fired. The king just runs away.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But Napoleon knew a fight was coming, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The moment he's back in power, his first job is to rebuild the army.
Yeah.
Because all the other leaders in Europe, they were not happy.
They were actually all meeting in Vienna at the time, trying to sort out Europe after he was gone.
Right, the Congress of Vienna. And when they get the news that Napoleon's back, they basically stop everything.
And they declare him an outlaw.
Not just an outlaw, but a threat to world peace. They form what's called the Seventh Coalition. That's Britain, Prussia, Austria, Russia, all of them agreeing they have to stop him for good.
So the plan is to invade France from all sides.
And Napoleon knows he can't wait for that. He can't fight all of them at once. He has to move first.
So his focus is on the two armies that are closest, right? In what's modern-day Belgium.
That's it. You've got the British and their allies, led by the Duke of Wellington, and you've got the Prussian army, led by a tough old general named Gebhard von Blücher.
So Napoleon's strategy is pretty brilliant, but also super risky.
It's his only move. He has to attack them fast and beat them one at a time, separately, before they can link up and combine their forces.
A quick knockout punch.
He hoped a fast victory would just break the whole alliance apart.
And that speed is what makes these first few days in June so intense. He moves his army north into Belgium incredibly fast.
And at first, it works perfectly. On June 15th, he crosses the Sambre River and takes the town of Charleroi.
Which puts him right between the two enemy armies, Wellington to the west, Blücher to the east.
Exactly where he wanted to be. So he splits his own army to attack both of them at the same time.
Which brings us to June 16th. Two massive battles happening on the same day.
First up is the Battle of Ligny. Napoleon himself leads the main attack against Blücher's Prussians.
And it's a French victory.
It is. After some really brutal fighting, the French break the Prussian lines. But here's the crucial part. The Prussians lose badly, but they don't panic.
They don't just run away.
Blücher orders a very disciplined, organized retreat. And this is key. He retreats north toward Wellington, not east, back toward Germany. He was determined to keep his promise to help his ally.
So while that's happening, a few miles away at a crossroads called Quatre Bras.
Napoleon's commander, Marshal Ney, is fighting Wellington's forces.
And that battle was more of a draw, right?
A bloody draw, yeah. But it did what Napoleon needed it to do. It kept Wellington busy, so he couldn't help the Prussians at Ligny.
But then Wellington hears that the Prussians have retreated.
And he knows his position at Quatre Bras is now totally exposed. He has to move.
So he pulls his whole army back a few miles north to a spot he'd already picked out near Little Village.
The village of Waterloo. He chose the battlefield. And that choice was a game changer.
Tell us about this spot. Why was it so good?
Well, Wellington was a master of defense. He picked a long, low ridge near a farm called Mont Saint-Jean. But the genius part was his use of what's called the reverse slope.
The reverse slope? What's that?
It just means he placed most of his army on the side of the hill that was sloping away from the French.
So they were hidden.
Exactly. It protected them from cannon fire because the French artillery couldn't see them to aim properly. And it hid his true numbers. Napoleon was left guessing all day.
And to make this defensive line even stronger, he basically turned 3 buildings into mini fortresses.
Right. On his right, there was the Chateau of Hougoumont. In the center, the farm of La Haye-Sainte. And on the left, a little place called Papelotte. He packed them with his best troops.
But on the morning of the battle, June 18th, Napoleon makes a huge mistake.
A really critical one. It had poured rain the night before, and the ground was just thick, deep mud.
So he waits.
He waits. He delays the start of the attack until around 11:30 in the morning. He wanted the ground to dry out so he could move his heavy cannons around.
Getting that delay.
That delay gave Blücher's Prussians the extra hours they desperately needed to march and join the battle later that day. It was a fatal error.
So the cannons finally open up, and the battle begins. And it really unfolds in three main struggles.
The very first attack is on Hougoumont, that chateau on Wellington's right. Napoleon just meant for it to be a diversion, to pull Wellington's reserves over to that side.
But it doesn't work out that way. The British troops inside fight like mad.
They do. At one point, the French actually break through the main gate, and there's this incredible moment of hand-to-hand fighting to slam it shut again.
So this diversion just sucks in more and more French troops.
For the entire day, it became a battle within the battle, tying up thousands of Napoleon's soldiers that he desperately needed for the main attack.
Which was aimed right at the center of Wellington's line.
Yep. In the afternoon, about 18,000 French infantry march up the slope in these massive columns.
And they actually start to break through.
They do. They push back some of the Dutch and Belgian troops at the top of the ridge. But Wellington had a surprise waiting for them.
The British infantry who were lying down in the grass.
Exactly, hiding behind the crest of the hill. On command, they stand up and fire a massive, disciplined volley at point-blank range.
This shock must have been incredible.
They completely shattered the French columns. Then the British heavy cavalry charged down the hill and finished the job. The main French assault was stopped cold.
Which brings us to maybe the most iconic image of Waterloo, the great cavalry charges.
This was later in the afternoon. Marshal Ney, again, he sees some movement in the Allied center and he thinks they're retreating.
A huge miscalculation.
The disastrous one. He launches thousands of heavy cavalry, including the famous cuirassiers in their steel armor, charging up the muddy slope.
And how do you stop thousands of armored men on horseback?
With a tactic that's straight out of the textbook. The Allied infantry formed defensive squares.
So like hollow boxes of soldiers.
Perfect description. 4 ranks deep, with bayonets pointing out in every direction. Basically a human hedgehog.
And the horses won't charge into a wall of bayonets.
They can't. So for almost 2 hours, the French cavalry just rode around these squares getting shot at, but unable to break them. And here's the tactical problem for the French.
What's that?
With their own cavalry all mixed in with the enemy infantry, the French cannons couldn't fire. They would hit their own men.
So the squares held.
Ugh.
And while all this was going on,
Blücher kept his promise. The first Prussian troops started to arrive on the battlefield, on Napoleon's eastern flank.
right where he didn't want them.
Now Napoleon has to fight a war on 2 fronts. He's forced to send his last reserves over to a village called Plancenoit to stop the Prussians. It turned into this brutal house-to-house fight and just bled him dry.
So as evening is setting in, Napoleon has one last move, one final card to play.
The Imperial Guard. His best, his most elite soldiers. They had never been defeated in battle.
And he sends them straight at the center of Wellington's line.
It's the moment of decision. If the Guard breaks through, the battle's over. Wellington's army will collapse.
But Wellington had one last trick.
He did. He had his men lie down one more time. They waited until the Guard was almost at the top of the ridge.
Then they stood up.
They stood up and fired. A devastating volley right in their faces. And the unthinkable happened. The Imperial Guard hesitated. They broke.
For the first time ever, they turned and ran.
And that was it. The cry went through the whole French army. The Guard is retreating. It caused a complete panic, a total rout. The battle was over.
The aftermath was just a tragedy. Almost 50,000 men killed or wounded in one day.
A horrific butcher's bill. Wellington and Blücher met that night at an inn to confirm the victory.
And Napoleon.
He fled to Paris, gave up the throne again a few days later, and then surrendered to the British.
And they didn't take any chances this time. No more island prisons in the Mediterranean.
No. They sent him to St. Helena, a tiny, remote rock in the middle of the South Atlantic Ocean. That's where he died in 1821.
So in the end, Waterloo didn't just end Napoleon's career. It ended an entire era of warfare.
It really did. It brought an end to the Napoleonic Wars and started a long period of relative peace in Europe. Tactically, it proved that disciplined infantry using terrain smartly could defeat even the most fearsome cavalry attack.
And the moment that undefeated Imperial Guard broke, it was a shockwave that really did change history. It makes you wonder, if Napoleon hadn't waited for the ground to dry that morning, Could those few hours have changed everything?
That's one of history's great what-ifs.
That's a lot of knowledge to take with you. Good luck with your studies.